We have right around a $4 expected move coming in the spiders. That's going to be SPY. That's your S&P ETF. Right around a $4 expected move by tomorrow's expiration. You go all the way out to Friday's expiration. Everybody's pricing in right around a $6 expected move. So on the week so far, you can see we gapped up here. So eventually we're going to come down and fill that gap. But until then, we might get saved here by these 578s. That's going to be a nice support for us below that. We're looking at this 200 SMA and the 9-day EMA, currently trading both at basically at 573. We'll call it that. And then before we get down here to this 567.35 area, and that is going to be where that gap needs to be filled. Resistance wise, we kind of don't really have a whole lot of anything here that we're kind of sitting on. The $600 level is going to be key for us though. So once we kind of break the 590s, nothing's really stopping us until we get to that $600 level, though. You can see a lot of touch points here for resistance, nice support in here as well in February. But we do always like to kind of overshoot or always think of ourselves as overshooting those nice whole numbers. So really, that's why we're looking at this 608 up here for a better resistance, because once we get up above the 600, you're going to have basically an $8 channel in here before we start to kind of consolidate and pull back. And then we got to see if we can get confirmation of the 600s before we kind of breach back down below them and then head back lower. So if we go back to the weekly chart here, you can see visually better where that gap is that needs to be filled down here. And then you can kind of see that we're sitting right on that 578, 577 support. Below that on the weekly, you do have a 9-day EMA in here that is currently trading at 562. So perhaps that could be something of help for us too, if we start to kind of pull back in here very, very harshly. I don't think we will, but in case we do, that could help us as well. If you go to the 30-minute chart here, you can see basically what happened in the past 2 days was a whole lot of nothing, right? So you had a little climb in here. You had a day where basically you opened right around that 583 mark, and then you ended up in here closing right around that 586. And then basically we closed the day only about 70 cents higher than where we closed the previous day. So not a whole lot going on in here. A theta burn, IV contraction in here overall on 2 days, where basically you get a whole 70-cent move. I understand that, yes, we did move more than just 70 cents in here today. If you take your high and low in here, you can go 588 to about 585 all in all. But again, from close to close, it was only around 70 cents, or basically 0.1% is what we looked at for a move in here. So all in all, what are we looking at here in the spiders? Indecision candle in here. Your RSI is overbought here on the daily chart. You're basically kind of sitting at overbought as well on the weekly. So keep that in mind. And if we get a pullback in here, 578 is going to be the major support in here. And then below that, we're going to be watching this gap fill, but we're going to keep an eye on this 200 SMA first, because if we start to pull back harshly, then perhaps this 200 SMA could come up here and we could kind of touch down here. Or if we pull back it's kind of slowly, this 200 SMA could kind of creep down here and then basically end up being at the same point, or I guess the same strike point where our gap needs to be filled here on the daily. So that is kind of what we're looking at in here. Resistance wise, 590 above that 600. We'll overshoot it and go to 680. 608, that is going to be something that we're going to be watching as well. Again, with your IV contraction in here, IV rank 17, like I mentioned before, $4 expected move by tomorrow. You have right around a $6 expected move by Friday. Next Friday, everybody's pricing in right around a $12 expected move in here on your spider. So we'll see what happens. Is this move too good to be true in here? We need some more kind of capitulation up here, little overexhaustion before we start to head higher. But if not, maybe a nice harsh pullback could be on the books as well. We'll see what happens tomorrow, especially with all the big news coming out, all in all, for the whole economy. All right, guys, if you like this video, make sure to check us out on all of our social media. We also have a Discord service if you're interested, and you can find all of our socials in the description below.